Cheese on toast. Toast on cheese on cheese on toast. Cheese on toast.
Hello my friends and welcome to Spicy Spin presents Trump-o-Rama. Yay! That picture at the beginning of the video explains what this entire week has been about, and it came from a Norwegian magazine and I just liked it, so I just thought I'd put it there. I find it amusing because basically this entire week with Trump has been about his battle with the media. He's basically playing a bit of a game of I know you are, I said you are, but what am I, every time they accuse him of lying, which is incredibly childish for a president to do. But anyway, if you didn't get last week's episode, I'll just quickly explain what we're doing here. It's a game me and my friends invented where we keep an eye on the news all week. We keep an eye on Trump-related news, specifically about him, and we score him in certain categories. And then we just sort of put bets on whether or not it's going to be higher or lower next week, and then we score it again. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the game. Just a bit of fun. Don't be mad at me. But yeah, so we scored him again this week, and the first category we've got is hair, and we scored him a 5, which is the same as last week. His hair has neither gotten better nor worse. It stays the same, and we've had no particularly amusing photos of his hair, so we're just going to keep it as a 5 for now. So yeah, the next category is countries triggered. Now last week there was the travel ban. We left him a little bit of wiggle room, but I don't know if he's ever going to be able to trigger that many countries in one go. But this week he was mostly triggering his own country, unless you are a media source from outside of the US, because that's pretty much all he's this week's been focused on, is his battle with the media, basically. So we gave him a 5 for that. He's triggered less countries than last week, so he gets an average medium score of 5. Dick moves. Again, the travel ban is a pretty big dick move, so we gave him a lower score this week, but to be honest, still a bit of a dick move. And basically the main story that's happened this week is Donald Trump said this.
And all across Europe, you've seen what happened in Paris and Nice. All over Europe, it's happening. It's gotten to a point where it's not even being reported. And in many cases, the very, very dishonest press doesn't want to report it.
Shortly followed with a list of terrorist attacks that happened that the media allegedly didn't report on. This was immediately debunked because basically if you type in any of the things on this list, the media reports on it, and they were pretty pissed off about it, rightly so, like this man here.
After he said that, the White House released a list of the attacks that he was supposedly referring to as, in his words, not even being reported. I want to put up some footage of CNN reporters covering the attacks on that list. I spent 2 weeks in Paris in 2015 reporting on the attacks. We also see on the screen dozens of my colleagues, Alison Camerata covering the bombings in Brussels, Chris Cuomo and Anderson Cooper reporting on the supermarket attack in Paris, Brooke Baldwin covering the attack in Nice, Victor Blackwell reporting on the shootings in San Bernardino. Kellyanne, CNN and other media organizations cover terrorism around the world all the time. Saying that we don't cover terrorism, that's just false.
What the president is saying there, Jake, is that there are other attacks that don't get as much coverage. Obviously, the very sad incidents that you related where, frankly, CNN did amazing coverage for weeks at a time. I saw you all there on the ground doing that and telling the human interest stories and the tragic stories, and frankly, the involvement of the terrorists in those brutal attacks. Those get coverage. The other ones on the list, not so much. I think his point is twofold.
Those ones were on the list, but the ones I just recited for you were on the list.
Well,
your spin about the idea that we don't want to be inured to that's a lovely spin, but that's not what he was saying, Kellyanne. He was saying the media does not cover these stories because we don't want to cover them because we have some sort of agenda. That's what he was suggesting, and it's offensive given the fact that CNN and other media organizations have reporters in danger right now in war zones covering ISIS. And I just don't understand how the president can make an attack like that.
So yeah, dick move. But it's not the way to respond to being called a liar, really. No, that's not how you respond to being called a liar. You just stop lying, maybe. And yeah, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of false news out there. A lot of false news. But it's a bit of a leap to like not take accountability for any of the lies you've told. And anyway, so that was a dick move to do that. But obviously we've got our own little section there on Porkies. But the next section, you're fired. Now, last week he fired someone pretty big. This week, as far as I'm aware, he didn't fire anybody this week. But, however, he did imply that anyone who doesn't agree with him, he's working for the government, should reconsider their career. But anyway, we will move on from that. Porkies! So, I didn't explain this score from last week properly, but we picked 6.9 because 69.9 is the actual percentage of what he says is lies. I was kind of hoping people would pick up on it, but maybe it was just a bit too subtle. We gave him an 8 this week because, to be honest, he lied. He lied a lot. He did a lot of lying this week, and the main lie being sort of just this battle he has with the media. Can he just stop fighting with them, please, and just get on with being a president? He seems more concerned about what people think of him as opposed to what he's going to be able to do for his country. He doesn't seem to have very thick skin whatsoever. As soon as anyone pokes any fun at him or says anything against him, bam, Twitter. Now, I've never been on Twitter before, but I am actually going to get myself on Twitter just so that I can witness some of these firsthand. He mentioned at one point that he gets most of his facts from InfoWars. If you don't know what InfoWars is, then it's run by this guy.
Everyone is guilty, including you and your family. The TSA convicted pedophiles must now take you to a private rape room to make sure Al-Qaeda is not in your grandma's colostomy bag.
Which, to be fair, looks like the kind of person that you would find in your local park chasing squirrels with a stick. So, but they seem like the same kind of sort of level of crazy. Which is another thing that was brought up this week, is people have started to question Donald Trump's level of insanity. This was released earlier on this morning. It's an interesting watch, but I'll just show you a little clip of it.
Any liberal democracy, any constitutional democracy, relies upon something we call the objective truth. Now, some politicians fib and lie. In fact, almost all of them do to some extent, but they always do it in a way that pays some sort of deference to reality. And what we've discovered is that in the last 3 weeks, this president, rather like he did on the campaign trail, simply insists that black is white, that things that we can see with our own eyes, like the size of his inauguration crowd, are not exactly what we're seeing. And he's able to command his underlings to actually go out there and also say things that are empirically untrue. And to have such an unstable figure, incapable of accepting reality at the center of the world, is an extremely dangerous thing.
You said unstable. In your column, you said mentally unstable. Why do you think it's appropriate to be describing the president that way?
I'm not a shrink, and if I were, I wouldn't say this anyway, because you can't diagnose someone. But I'm a human being, and I can tell if someone is saying things that we know not to be true and never corrects it. For example, that the murder rate, which is a very solid statistic, you know, there are dead bodies we can count. When he says the murder rate is the highest it's been in 45 to 47 years, what are we supposed to do, Brian? Well, what is anybody supposed to do? This is simply completely bonkers.
And he's not the only one. He's not the only one who's kind of questioned it.
Trying to understand the way this president functions is something that I can't quite figure out myself, and I'm not sure that many people can.
It does bring me, though, to a serious issue, though, of course, which is mental health, right? In recent days, several Democrats have questioned his mental health. Nancy Pelosi said he should get a mental health check. She suggested that. You yourself have used the word delusional to describe him. Look, I know how you feel about him, but do you think that this talk is disrespectful of the office of the president?
You know, that is a fair question. And if you know my personal record, you know I am maybe the most progressive member of the United States Congress. But that doesn't allow me, and I never have, just attack people because their views are different than mine. You got a lot of Republicans out there, conservative, they're decent, honest people. I disagree with them. I use the term delusional in Trump with regard to Trump when he said there were 3 to 5 million illegals who voted in the last election. Erin, that is delusional. Nobody in the world believes that is the case. There is zero evidence to back it up. But he makes that statement. So I think the word delusional is correct. I have used the word pathological liar to describe Donald Trump. Those are very harsh terms. I don't feel good about it. I disagreed with George Bush all the time. Never called him a pathological liar because he was not, just a conservative president. But this guy lies all of the time.
Yeah, I get the feeling that next week it's going to be about whether or not he's insane. I might have to replace hair with insanity score. But yeah, we'll see. I'll discuss it with the group. So he got an overall score of 52 out of 100, which is a bit lower than last week. Next week, with the triggering of Donald Trump, if everyone's going to start calling him mad, I wonder how crazy he'll get next week. Do you think it's going to be lower or higher? Possibly. I reckon it's going to be slightly higher next week, but not as high as our first score. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed this. Bye!
Cheese on toast. Toast on cheese on cheese on toast. Cheese on toast. Toast on cheese on toast. These chords are recycled and this melody is stolen from the shop down the road, but we'd much rather steal from Tesco.